working and being around hospitals. My dad worked in a hospital, ran the lab for 43 years. And so I was always comfortable in hospitals. And at 18, I got a job as an EKG tech. And I knew I really liked the heart, and I liked working in hospitals. And some really great respiratory therapists in the department at that hospital just sort of took me in and really showed me what the profession was. And prior to that, I really knew about it because my aunt, who I'm really close with, was an RT. And my mom really wanted me to go to nursing school. No, I really like these RTs I've met, and I think this is more of my calling, and sort of dove right in. I wear many hats, but my main one is that I'm an assistant professor at Indiana University School of Medicine, and also at Riley Hospital for Children in Indianapolis. My day-to-day, and one of the things I love about my job is that I have a lot of day-to-day variability. I work stateside about 9 months a year, and then I work in Liberia the other 3 months per year. And so my day-to-day varies depending on which side of the Atlantic I'm residing. For my main job here at Indiana University, I'm about 90% research, 10% clinical. And in any given day, I see a patient in clinic. We have a few rare airway diseases clinics that I work with. And then I also run a laboratory where I grow functioning pieces of airways from biopsies that I take from people either nasally or during bronchoscopy. And so a day in my life goes literally from the bench to the bedside and back. That I'm either feeding and growing airways in my lab or working with patients and trying to fix what's going on with their airways. How I got involved with working as a respiratory therapist abroad started in Costa Rica in 2009. I really had no interest or really was unaware of opportunities to do so. And my boss and mentor when I was working at the University of Virginia was running an asthma study in Costa Rica and needed help on the ground. And so I went down and lived there for 3 months, 6 weeks in dry season and 6 weeks in rainy season, and enrolled every asthma exacerbation in the children's hospital during those 3 months to try and characterize what was causing the high rate of asthma in Costa Rica. And I really loved the work, even though I'm not in any way fluent in Spanish, and I was very, very grateful to have a translator, and the language barrier was very real. I really enjoyed it, and it just, some things feel that they come naturally to you, and that line of work really worked for me. And that was the beginning. And about a year later, I had the opportunity to go with the same person to Liberia, West Africa, to help open a clinic. And I went over and just fell in love with Liberia and the work there, and discovered that the leading cause of hospitalization and death there is respiratory disease and respiratory failure. And they didn't really have any respiratory therapists. They had one at the National Hospital at the time. And there appeared to be a lot of work I was invited to do. As far as other countries in which I've served, again, I've worked in Costa Rica and I've worked in Liberia, West Africa. And also I'm involved with the International Association of Breath Research, and I have several collaborations throughout Europe and work really closely, particularly in the United Kingdom and England with University of Manchester. So the top skills that are the most important skills for being a respiratory therapist working abroad, I think 3 immediately come to mind, which are patience, humility, and autonomy, or the ability to be autonomous. That in all of the environments in which I've worked abroad, those 3 things have been the most important. That patience, because there are going to be a huge amount of barriers over which you have almost no control, whether they're cultural barriers, language barriers, or just barriers of practice. Even though the International Council and the AARC continue to promote the profession and we're growing internationally, the majority of countries don't have respiratory therapists, and frankly, many of them are unaware of what our profession is. And so just sort of the patience there. And what comes with that is the humility of having to maybe take a step back and explain who you are, what you do, why it is that you may be of use, and what you can do for this patient or this scenario. And then, paired with that is the need to be able to work autonomously. Most of the countries where I've worked, I'm the only respiratory therapist or one of few, and on the team with which I'm working, at the institution with which I'm working, or sometimes even in the entire country. And you've got to be able to work well as an individual. I think the biggest challenges that I face working in Liberia are the same challenges that Liberia faces in trying to recover from its wars and economic downfall, which is just resource limitation. They're not unique to me. They're the challenges that Liberia faces every day. But there are certainly some extra ones. Again, cultural barriers. There, even though Liberia's national language is English, there are still language barriers there, and the natural barriers of being an outsider, and they get lower over time. It's one of the really great things of putting so much time into one place. And I've been working in Liberia over 11 years, and those barriers get smaller every trip and every day, but many of them are there and unfortunately are likely to be there for a long time. That is a tricky one. There are so many. I think one of the best moments that I have had in my work in Liberia is the day that the first class of the Liberian Respiratory Care Institute, our college for respiratory therapists in Liberia, the day that the first class graduated was overwhelming in positive emotion and joy and happiness. And a big part of that was not just feeling like I helped accomplish something and watching all of this, but it's that all of our work in Liberia, my colleagues and I, and the nonprofit with which we work, is focused on sustainability. And the moment that class graduated was just this combination of success and also a sigh of relief that no matter what happened moving forward, there were 12 people that were graduated registered respiratory therapists licensed in Liberia, that if everything else we were doing stopped that day, if something happened and we couldn't do this work anymore, that was going to keep going. And I just I can't even communicate how great that was. So indeed, when COVID made its way to Liberia, there were certainly some challenges with our work there. I was in Liberia at the very beginning when COVID was just starting in 2020, in spring of 2020. And I came back to America, and the first wave of COVID hit Liberia, and they shut the border for 6 months. And so obviously was a challenge, made it so I couldn't go back over, but it also was a great decision because it stopped that first wave, and really Liberia is fairly isolated, and it kept new vectors from entering and really allowed Liberia to dodge most of the COVID-19 in 2020 that the rest of the world had to experience. When I went back this spring, they had reopened the borders, and obviously there are some difficulties with closing the border. It hurt the economy. It really made life hard in Liberia. but they avoided much of the early parts of the pandemic. When they reopened, COVID-19 came back, and I was really fortunate to be invited by the Minister of Health to come over and serve as a consultant to the ministry to help with the national pandemic response and strategy from an acute respiratory level. And that was both maybe some of the greatest work of my life and greatest experiences, and also some of the most challenging. The third wave of COVID in Liberia started in this June of 2021. And I was in Liberia from then until that wave ended, which was last week, actually, in August. And, it's challenging because of the issues that are always challenging in Liberia: resource limitations, supply chain issues, just simply getting enough regulators for oxygen cylinders to be able to provide oxygen to the patients that needed it was, our first hurdle. But we were able to do that with the help of a lot of partners internationally, and Liberia got it under control. And it was really great to be a part of that. So what I tell everyone, whether it's high school students or people looking to make a career change later in life, about why to do respiratory therapy, is just looking at how much A, I love this work, and B, how many opportunities it has made possible for me. And those opportunities are available for anybody in this profession. That whether it's working in acute care, home care, academia, internationally, abroad, it's almost limitless what you can do as a respiratory therapist. And that's something that I don't think we say enough, and I don't think gets said enough, but it certainly should. And I'll be quite honest that early in my time as a respiratory therapist, I was unaware of many of the opportunities made available to us. And I am really thankful for my mentors in the respiratory therapy community who showed me what opportunities were out there, because it not only kept me in the profession, but has made me find a career that I love even more than I ever thought I could. And I try to do that for every new therapist and for people who think they might want to become one.